Welcome to the radio control wallet vacuum channel. Today I'm going to delve into a little bit of a review and the trials and tribulations I had with this Rovan 450 XLT. I'm pretty certain this is a clone of a Losi MTXL, and I'm sure there's some Losi 1.0 parts here. I never had a 1.0, I only had a 2.0, but from what I can see in pictures, looks like a lot of, especially the steering. I think a lot of the geometry stuff is based on that too. But one thing with this thing is, you can expect some issues, but all in all, it's a great vehicle. I certainly would recommend it. But I want to go over some of the things I had problems with on this thing. I did start out with set the Bartolone pipe on it right away. It didn't really line up too well back here where it needed to mount, so I had to spin something off on the lathe to make an adapter for it. So the braking I started, I did 3 5-minute heat cycles on it on a flat lawn going around in circles, and it was taking it real easy on it. And brought the thing in on the third cycle and noticed one of the front shocks had come apart. Now, first off, something like this, you got to go through and check all your tensions and your screws, make sure everything's Loctited, stuff like that. And actually, let me jump back a little bit. When I did first get it, I went through the radio setup on it, and steering was 100% on the travel, which is fine. But the throttle was set 100%, and you could watch this come in. This was flexing right here, so it was obviously way overset. So I pushed it way back to, I think I went back to 40% and looked pretty close. It certainly wasn't flexing anymore, but I didn't care if it wasn't going full throttle yet because it was in braking. But once it was all said and done, I did end up going back and setting them more precise, and it still was only at 45%. So you definitely want to get your travel set right, or otherwise you're going to snap this thing or stress a servo or something. So anyhow, when I brought the thing back in, this shock was apart. I didn't have these outerwears at the time, and that got drawn my eye in. Now I looked a bit closer. The drive cups and the dog bone pins were, though the pins were almost sheared off. And I mean, it's only been out there for a couple of minutes. But so I pulled them out, replaced the cups. I did stick with stock Rovans. I didn't go to the hardened cups yet. And I punched the pins out of there and replaced them with some drill rod. And I went to put it back together. Where the problem was became pretty obvious, because when I went to pin in the CV joints, once you drop them pins, it bound up. Those rods, they had a very limited motion. So I had to pull them CV cups out, put them in the lathe, very slightly machine the inside out, get some burrs out of it, and open it just a slight bit, and then radius it better on the entrance, and polish things and put it back together. And they rolled nice and freely. And since then, this thing's been run a lot harder, and those pins, I mean, there's no wear in there at all. This thing has had a lot of use, but it's definitely, there was clearly an issue with those CV joints. And let's see what else happened on this thing. The engine's been a great starter. It definitely has been started a lot better than those Zenoas when they're new. Zenoas are fine once they're broken in, but I know I've had trouble getting it going or not broken in. It definitely is a technique. You deviate from that technique, you're flooding the thing out, and it ain't going to the gas is out of the pipe and everywhere else. It does seem like it runs a little hot, a little bit hotter than the Zenoas. I don't know if it's that critical or not, but kill switch. You definitely want to put a kill switch in this thing before you start, and that's mandatory for any of these things. But I'll tell you on this one, I had been out after the break-in and was running it up in a woods track, and went to line up to do a jump, hit the throttle, and started heading to jump, and I went to back off as I'm going over to jump. It didn't back off. It kept going wide open. So I was able to hit the kill switch quick enough. It rolled up through a little metal and just come in and just gently touched a maple tree. Didn't do any damage to anything. So it became obvious the throttle servo was messed up. So I thought it completely failed until I got home and I pulled it out and seen, it's another thing you want to check. They did not have the cables tied up well in there, and they must have been jumping up in there and catching on that gear. and just happened to pull the signal wire. The power wires are still good, but the signal was popped. So it soldered it back up, put it back together, and it's been fine since. It didn't damage the receiver, it didn't damage the servo. So it took care of that. So what else went wrong on this? Well, one thing you want to do is you want to seal your air box. I didn't right away, and I ran a couple times, popped it open, looked inside there, and it was crud all over inside there. So I actually go through and clean it up, and every time I split this, I got to re-silicone it and seal it back up for now. So I did, at one point, I did bump into a tree with one of these front wheels. I guess it was this one up there, and just gently nudged it, but there's so much leverage sitting on there, and it ended up bending the hinge pin, and it was bent up in the front here. So I popped that out, and I replaced that with a Taylor carbon graphite, and I got some 6mm drill rod in there to replace that. And there's a little plastic bushing, and that was damaged, but I was gonna make a new one on the lathe for that. One thing is the you take these stock Rovan hinge pins and put a file to them, and it's obviously real mild steel. Where like this drill rod, I think it's like an A2 drill rod or something like that, and you take a stock Losi hinge pin and the file don't touch it. So there definitely is a difference in quality there. But you got to take into consideration when you get this, you get all this cool anodized aluminum stuff that if you were to get a Losi or something like that, you're gonna pay big bucks to expand it. So all in all, it's actually, it's a good vehicle. I would highly recommend it, but just you got to be prepared to do a little work on it and expect some problems. You got to debug it. Everybody has see how much difference issue with the differentials and stuff like that. I am going to replace the rear hinge pin mount and hinge pins with a drill rod and carbon fiber. I just haven't got around to it. And one thing I'd like to do is replace the engine. It's definitely more of a top end engine. It's not really good in a tight track or a tight trail situation. It doesn't have the quick acceleration. I don't know, there is that Bartolone modified engine, but I don't know, I gotta see about getting something different, like an OBR or a Taylor to go in there. Oh, and the steering sucks. The I don't know, I think that's the old Losi 5T 1.0, but it washes out bad. You start going into corners and any back feed on it, it just gives out. I gotta play around. Maybe there's just some adjustments I gotta do with it, but I do want to see if I can change it out to a 2.0, which definitely works a lot better. There is a lot of leverage, these big tires and stuff on here, but I would think they could get a little better response from the steering. The engine leaks. It's definitely a leaker. I've been trying to keep that stuff tight, but both intake and intake and exhaust definitely leak, and it doesn't seem to be cured. I was tempted to pull that spacer out and try to put it on the mill and see like flatten it a little bit, see if there's something going on with that, but it ain't worth the effort. I'll probably make it worse. So, all in all, I give it high marks, but the other thing that's happened too, I've had some of these ball ends pop out. I just repress them in there. Actually, I've been gluing them and then pressing them in. Probably wouldn't hurt to replace them with something a little better, but this is kind of a beater truck. It definitely, the flight characteristics of the thing over its jumps are way better than at least my Losi 5T. It definitely does not know. The 5T, if you don't do it exactly right, it wants to nosedive. This thing comes off the jumps really well. I definitely really like it. It's definitely got a lot of potential. Just need to do some updates like that. For me, I think the steering and the engine would be the two big things to fix. And after that, maybe beef up some of these hubs, axle carriers, stuff like that might need to be replaced. These things probably could be beefed up a little bit. But, well, what do you want? I may swap the battery that's in there for a LiPo. And other than that, it's been a pretty good vehicle. I'd recommend it. Another thing that can be kind of an issue on this is the fact that there's no roll cage in the body and no roll cage on the engine. So I have been tempted to build something on there, but you do have the sides mount to that. and it does support it pretty good. I've rolled it several times, and it seems to hold up pretty good. I don't know if you were really hammering. I don't know if it would hold up that well, but for average rollover is not too bad. But it certainly wouldn't hurt to have some kind of roll cage in there, either directly over the motor or something built right into the body. But yeah, driver beware.